What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button, and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
First of all, let's deal with the indices. For simplicity in the header, we specified F01, and this is the code of the body with a short base of 3070 mm. Long wheelbase 7, 3210 mm between the axles, is F02. And F03 is an armored version. In terms of body architecture, the displacement of steel structures with aluminum, which was started during the predecessor E65, continued. Thus, the front part almost all, except for the spars, consists of cast and stamped aluminum structures. Cast aluminum suspension cups are attached to steel spars and engine shield on glue, rivets and bolts. The hood, front fenders, all doors and roof panels, trunk lid and many body reinforcements and bumper bars are also made of aluminum. For such elements as the engine shield, windshield frame, middle body pillars and sills, high-strength steels were actively used, and in several layers. Thus, in the sill there are 3 to 4 layers of steel with thickness of more than 1.5 mm each. Connections of steel elements in many places are made by laser welding, which is impossible to reproduce in the conditions of a cottage, workshop or even a dealer center. As a result, the body became very strong, withstanding huge loads and road accidents, but also noticeably more disposable. It will not be possible to restore to the factory state in any serious accidents. It is extremely poorly stretched on conventional slipways and for the most part is not welded. Any welding of the power frame will weaken it very much. In the front end, any changes in geometry require replacing the aluminum suspension cup on the donor, and you can edit only the original spar, and then only a little. It is very strong and resilient. The complexly shaped upper stiffener is steel, but completely disposable. The strong subframe is aluminum, in case of damage, only replacement as an assembly. The multi-layer steel cellular structures for impact absorption in the front end are also only replaceable in one piece. Is it possible to buy donor parts and rebuild? In theory, yes. Glue and rivets are available. However, the factory strength of seams cannot be achieved. Surfaces need to be prepared very carefully, elements need to be heated. In short, if something other than plastic is damaged in a frontal impact, it is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to restore the car. In the rear part, the repair is much easier. The steel is ordinary, but there are nuances too. Plastic fastening of the rear bumper to the fender is very interesting. It is a whole aerodynamic element with several points of fastening to the body and a cavity for air filtration, so that less dust gets into the cabin through the ventilation louvers, and completely covers the whole hidden part of the wing under the bumper. Under the trunk opening is the same developed plastic element to fix the bumper as accurately as possible. Any sagging, noticeable, visually, indicates a rather serious breakage. As in any normal BMW, the motors are located longitudinally, and the basic drive is on the rear axle. All-wheel drive, with electronically controlled friction in the transfer case. Suspensions are heavy-duty aluminum, double wishbone at the front and multi-lever at the rear. All suspensions have electronically controlled shock absorbers, and the rear suspension can be equipped with air cylinders, in 760i versions and in cars after restyling. Also, this 7 can be fully controlled. It is realized by installation of mechatronic drives and their control unit on the rear axle. The angle of deviation is small, but it allows to improve controllability and reduce the turning radius. Transmissions are only automatic, 6 and 8-speed ZF of classical design with a torque converter of Series 6 HP21 on the simplest cars. With the engine N52 730i and Series 6 HP28A on cars with more powerful supercharged engines 3.0 and V8 4.4. And the cars with diesel 3.0 and gasoline V12 before the 8-speed automatic transmissions, 8 HP70 and 8 HP90. After the restyling, these automatic transmissions were used with almost all engines, but rear-wheel drive gasoline cars can be found with 6-speed transmissions of later editions. Modification indices, as it often happens, do not always correspond to the working volumes. So, the 730i models really have 3.0 engines, inline 6's N52, but the 740i is not 4-litre at all, but with supercharged 3 and 0. N54, N55. The 750i has a turbocharged V8 4.4 Series N63, but the 760i really has a 6-litre V12 N74, also turbocharged. The diesel engines here are all with the 3.0 Series N57 engine, but in different versions, with 1, 730D, 2, 740D, or even 3, 750D, turbos. The design is very electronically rich. Several data buses, including optical buses, link everything together to operate a couple dozen control units. There's a huge amount of service electronics and variety of options. It will be extremely difficult to find two identical cars with an identical set of ECUs, because the kits are traditionally customized. The majority of 7s for Russia were assembled in Kaliningrad. You should not be afraid of our assembly, although there were some minor complaints about the quality of coloring and assembly. However, German cars are not perfect either. Defects happen to all of them. Timeline July 8, 2008. World premiere on Red Square in Moscow. The dollar cost 23 rubles. The war with Georgia was a month away, and the first economic crisis was 3 months away. November 15, 2008. BMW's 7er production models in 740i, 750i, 750Li and 730D variants are unveiled. July 2009. All-wheel drive versions of the 750i xDrive and 750Li xDrive become available, as well as the youngest version of the 730i 730Li with an atmospheric 3.0 engine. August 2009. Introduction of the 760i 760Li with a V12 engine. Fall 2009. Appearance of more powerful diesel modification 740D. M package became available for most versions. September 2010. All-wheel drive version 740D xDrive became available. July 2012. Restyling of the model. Now all versions have only 8-speed automatic transmission. Previously the main gasoline cars were 6-speed. Versions 730D and 730i are no longer available, but there is a top diesel 750D and all-wheel drive 740D. Air suspension of the rear axle is now standard on all versions. New multimedia system. Exterior and interior updates. Updated engines. New safety assistance, adaptive cruise control and automatic parking system. July 2015. Release of the successor, the G11 generation. For 3 more months, 2 generations of the 7 were produced in parallel, and the last car kits at Avtoda were assembled 6 months later. Body exterior panels rust outside. Most likely, there will be no rust. The cars are still well taken care of and timely painted. Often the body is covered with some liquid glass or other substance, which is good for paintwork. However, on close inspection, you can occasionally find chips and bubbles on the rear fenders and roof pillars and windshield frame. These are the only steel parts visible from the outside. The hood, roof panel, doors, and front fenders, as already mentioned, are aluminum. This does not mean that they do not require attention. In places of damage and repairs, at door hinges, frame mounts, locks, and in places where various fasteners are installed, you can find swellings and see grey crumbling metal. In any case, it will not be much. If there are no gross violations of the conditions of use, during repair did not use aluminum rivets and did not change the materials. Of fasteners, the process of aluminum corrosion is very long, even if the car was stored on the street and washed as it was. From below inspection on a hoist is strongly complicated by the fact that the body is almost completely covered by aerodynamic panels. Develop lockers and dust covers. Well, plastic can also tell something about the condition of the body. Pay attention to the condition of rear lockers and sill plates. If plastic has traces of contact with the ground, and felt rear lockers are wet through, then the car has long been living not its own life, does not sleep in clean and dry garages, and wanders through back alleys and broken roads and does not receive proper maintenance. In this case, a close inspection will probably turn up a million other minor problems. For example, oxidized calipers, sensor joints, and air suspension fittings, rusty screws and not only. And if you remove damaged lockers and plastic, you will almost certainly find corrosion inside the arches and on the wires of control. Units of shock absorbers and active rear axle steering. If you go even further and remove the rear bumper to look into the joint between the fender and the bumper, you will see bloating. In the upper part, if the joints have not been washed thoroughly and regularly. If, on the other hand, the plastic overlays are smooth, the lockers are dry, and everything looks more or less pristine, then chances are everything inside is probably fine too. But that doesn't mean the inspection is over. Look in the trunk. It is often damp here because of unsuccessful design of clips in the drain. They get old and start to let water inside. Often they are simply put on sealant, which seems to be a coal hose, but it is more reliable than buying new ones. In the trunk you should be afraid not of corrosion, but of problems with electronics. There is a lot of it here. In the center is the battery, on the edges of the wiring and about a dozen, the exact number depends on the configuration, blocks of electronics. The problem of water in the doors, familiar from various BMW models since at least the 90s, is also relevant here. It's the same combination of clogged drains and good sealing of the doors themselves. Check the drains, shake the doors. There's enough electronics inside for a whole Solaris. There's at least a power window control unit, a handle with a controller and a door closer. If the problem is ignored, expect corrosion of the window lifters, and over time, leaks inside the cabin, where there is even more wiring and electronics on the floor. Water can also be in the sills and hatch niche, again due to clogged drains. The niche rusts just as it does on the Jaguar XJ, though the problem isn't massive yet. Be sure to check the underhood space, the overmotor niche and the condition of all seams. The engine compartment is very hot here, especially with V8 or V12 engines. The sealant ages at an accelerated rate, especially in cars that have been idling for days waiting for the big boss. Cracks in the sealant lead to corrosion of both steel and aluminum in the neighborhood. Body equipment, unfortunately, for all the German thoroughness of the design, there are obviously a lot of miscalculations. First of all, the owners are bothered by the breakage of door handles. The original ones have an unsuccessful seal and are afraid of water. At first they fail after washes, and then the board simply corrodes. The system of keyless access stops working and the battery starts to sit down quickly. Surprisingly, the Chinese handles are made obviously better than the original, and cost 5 times cheaper, and their sealing is better. The optics also turned out to be ugly. Firstly, headlight caps crack, and these are not small cracks, but through cracks, which are ready to grow to the whole height of the glass. Xenon here is quite strong. It burns out not so quickly, but LED headlights turned out to be weak, and the light flux is noticeably less than from discharge lamps. In addition, the LEDs of the main module die over time from overheating. Repair is not budgetary, complicated, but quite possible. You can even change the LEDs to more powerful, and at once twice as much, and at the same time to improve the cooling of the headlight. The repair will be much more profitable than buying a new headlight. You can get within 120 to 150 euros together with the work, while you will not find a headlight for less than 2,000. But if problems with the main light diodes, so far, are infrequent, the LED turn signal modules die all the time. What is interesting, they can be bought separately, but the price of 350 euros clearly does not correspond to the complexity of the part. For LEDs, pull as much as 300 rubles for repair, and where do 2 more zeros appear in the price of the part, hardly anyone will answer you. Door locks also suddenly fail, and there is also a Chinese version with refinements. Otherwise, the quality of workmanship is very high. All parts are available, even the smallest detail. The quality of workmanship is excellent. From the factory does not differ. True, the total price of all the little things can easily amount to several 100,000 rubles, and the price with bumpers and optics exceeds 1,000,000 rubles. It is not surprising that fat F01s are sometimes not stolen, but stripped. They remove everything that is valuable, from the rudder to the optics, having unlocked the alarm system beforehand. In the equipment of the car, not all elements are tied to a specific configuration, and the software protection of many components has already been broken. Part original price of non-original two-body headlight xenon with AHL 97645 Magneti Morelli 38076 Hella. 41716 headlight by Xenon 98452 Magneti Morelli 45459 windshield 38063 KMK 5619 front fender 42686 API 17946 front bumper 63. 214 Polcar 32818 Hood 114 453 Schneider 52 324 Repair mudguard without VIN number 43 782 not available interior. The course on disposability of trim, taken by BMW with the appearance of 5E60 and 7E65, was continued here. The steering wheel coating wears off relatively quickly. The climate control buttons are wiped down to white plastic, displays are scratched, and the restyling often requires replacement of door handle covers. The unlock button on the automatic transmission lever lufts and sometimes even falls out, and electric motors of adjustment fail in. Cool seats with a braking backrest. The screens in the backrests regularly fade anti-reflective coating and occasionally tears the loop. The steering column often knocks and bites, its lower section with a gimbal and splines, alas, a consumable. The full list of potential problems depends on the equipment. Door closers, illumination, aromatizers, ozonators, remote controls for built-in multimedia and climate control, massagers, ottomans, curtains. It all breaks sooner or later. BMW's NBT multimedia system is old school by today's standards, and it is difficult to update it. Many owners take such a step as buying a Chinese multimedia system with NBT interface, which is bolt-on and perfectly integrated with onboard electronics. The price of such a module, from €500, which is more than 5 times cheaper than the second-hand, not to mention the new, original. And the installation of the Chinese is much easier. The only thing that such modules have not learned yet is to show video to the rear monitors. But everything can change by the time of publication of the article. The design of seats is complicated and capricious. The heating is not only broken from an unlucky pressing, but the threads of heating are built into the cover, which sharply increases the cost of its replacement, unless, of course, you do not want to sew here carbon fiber kolhors and forget about the problem forever. And if you press it with your knee, you can break the blades of the ventilation system. Thus on resource of upholstery there are no special problems. Unlike a steering wheel, seats are made strong, even with the most delicate. Leather they hold well, 100,000 mileage does not give itself away by anything, well except wear of threads of stitching. Unlike younger models, 3TH and 5TH series, scuffs and loss of leather texture indicate mileage well over 200,000. Traditionally, there were no problems with the climatic system. Almost all cars have a very overloaded air conditioner compressor, and its resource is low, although the price of replacement should not be embarrassing against the price of car operation in general. Failures of the antifreeze supply valve often cause hot air supply to the salon in summer. The fan is noisy at speeds higher than minimum, though its productivity is made with a reserve, in case of what it can warm up and cool down the salon for minutes. Failures of electronics of climatics also happen. The system is rather delicate, and constant attempts of owners to reduce noise by reducing fan speeds badly affect the work of temperature shutters. They work in extreme positions and sometimes stick up, starting to rattle at changes of external temperature. In general, there are some complaints, and quite serious. Even owners of far from exemplary E65 say, there was no such thing in our time, and fans of E38 do not talk to owners of newer cars at all. They consider it beneath their dignity, but what they think about the quality of modern BMWs is unmistakably readable on their faces. Just to keep the interior of the car in full stock for good preservation in case of F01 is not enough. Degradation of quality of finishing materials in comparison with predecessors from the 90s is very noticeable, and 10 years for such a car is already a lot. Therefore, there is no need to reject the car on the basis of the fact that, say, the steering wheel has been restitched. These are often manifestations of healthy perfectionism. Electrics, it is naive to hope that everything will work perfectly in a car of such complexity. Even during the warranty period something failed, and at the age of 10 years the problems of such cars are almost guaranteed. The power wire of the battery that comes from the luggage compartment rots off somewhat unexpectedly in the place of the terminal adapter, exactly at the exit from the body. Problems with power input into the front distribution block in F01 also happen, but much less often than in E60, E90, and F30, because the wiring is now duplicated. 2 wires from the front come to the cabin at once, and the connectors themselves have been changed for more reliable ones. On the bottom of the car, the wire is laid more successfully and is rarely damaged. But it is necessary to check the condition of this power bus, as its condition is too important for the car's health. Alternators on V8 and V12 engines do not last too long due to overheating. The bearings do not withstand, and the brushes do not last long, within 150,000 in city mode with long downtimes typical for such cars. But the generator here is simple enough, with usual air cooling, so the price of €550 to €650 seems a little exaggerated. And the overrunning clutch on it is not of the best quality. It often causes excessive noise and requires unscheduled repairs. Otherwise, The wiring on the F01 is a fusion of magic and fantasy. There are two large bundles of wires: ordinary power wiring, signal copper, and optical cables. By the way, the price of the harness only on one side is more than €10,000. True, almost all elements and even connectors are available for sale individually, although their price is also impressive. Wiring failures are usually caused by service or traffic accidents, and wiring work is often associated with retrofitting the car and replacing blocks. As already mentioned, there are a lot of blocks, and in the factory version everything works quite stably, most of the typical problems. A current leakage due to door handles and breakdowns of mechatronics, various drives with motors. The blocks and their firmware have dependencies, and there are dedicated installers, software kits, and of course there are electricians who specialize in BMW electronics problem solving, block linkages, upgrades and updates. See or hear words like ZGW, ZGM, HU_CIC, Combi, Tail Editor, Most, ICOM, IHKA, and other SMBF and CAFAs, then you need to seek out a specialist or slowly sink into the abyss of upgrade, tire, and firmware madness. There can be a lot of reasons to get acquainted with the deep device of electronics, from a banal unsuccessful cigarette lighter to a traffic accident or a simple unsuccessful automatic update of a component. Well, or death of one of the blocks, which you have not even heard of and did not know that you have it in your car. What is there? Even hitting a good hole can cause problems with the contact in the optical bus and a long search for problems. And yes, 100,000 rubles for diagnostics in the wrong approach to the problem is spent easily and uselessly. Look for recommendations from professionals who will fix the machine, avoiding unnecessary expenses. Intermediate result. We have only looked at body, interior and electrical problems, but it is already clear that buying a used 7 Series F01 is a very high stakes game. Any serious accident for this car is 100% total. Such a car should be put on the nuts. It is impossible to restore it. Or rather, it is possible, but only for subsequent resale to a not very smart and attentive buyer. Try not to become such a buyer. In general, the body is strong enough to make many problems invisible to the eye, so if you take this car to drive for 6 months or a year, not investing and not worrying about little things, to then discount with a loss in price of 100 to 200,000 rubles, or even without it, you may be lucky. If you are going to take for a long time, and you are a perfectionist at heart, then even in the case when everything looks perfect, get ready to invest well and trim. If you have driven E38 or, say, W140, this car will seem to you as consumer goods, and not accidentally. We can only hope that the bitterness of disappointment will be brightened by the abundance of options, which in the 90s and early noughties you could only dream of. In conclusion, the BMW 7 Series F01, while a luxurious and powerful vehicle, does come with its share of challenges, particularly concerning water intrusion in the doors and the potential for significant body damage that may be irreparable after an accident. If you're considering this model, it's crucial to be aware of these issues and to conduct thorough inspections before making a purchase. Understanding these factors can help you make an informed decision and ensure that your investment in this prestigious car remains a rewarding experience. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more insights on automotive topics.